So I'm going to invite Shelly Moyal, founding partner of iAngels, an Israeli equity crowdfunding platform that gives accredited investors the opportunity to become angels in their own right by investing in technology startups alongside top-tier angel investors in Israel. She will talk about a couple of startups in their list. Welcome.
Oi, tudo bem? Hello, everybody. My name is Shelly Hod Moyal, and together with Mor Asya, we founded iAngels, which is an angel investing platform that allows private investors from all over the world to invest in high-tech startups in Israel, alongside the top-performing angel investors and VCs in the country. Some of you might already be familiar with the concept of group investing. The idea of investing together with other people in order to learn and benefit from their experience. At iAngels, we have taken group investing to the next level. Rather than relying on chance, we added an element of research to our model. And we've identified the top performing investors in the country, and we allow you to invest together with them under the same terms. So actually, Fernanda gave a wonderful presentation before on Israel high tech, so I'll just kind of breeze through it a little, because I also know that we might be a bit short on time. One thing I wanted to talk about is that Israel, as a country, from the investor perspective, produces about 100 liquidation events a year. We call them exits, which is either an M&A or an IPO. And more recently, the exit sizes have been becoming bigger and bigger. And this also goes to one of the things that Fernanda mentioned, that there's a growing generation of entrepreneurs that have already done it once and are doing it again. I can give you an example. For example, the entrepreneur of Playtika, which today is a $2.5 billion company, he exited a couple of years ago. He sold his company for $150 million, and now he is building a new startup, which iAngels is investing in. And there are several more, and these are really kind of building up the ecosystem. There are many strategic partners, global strategic companies in Israel actively scouting talent. 300 global companies are on-premise, usually as a result of a company that they acquired in Israel. So they've already had experience in buying companies in Israel, and they feel very comfortable in doing it, which makes it much easier to integrate companies, both culturally and logistically. Now, in terms of the funding landscape, something that we've researched and we found being very interesting is that while there are many, many opportunities in Israel, and currently there are about 3,000 startups, there's only a very small amount of investors, 200 investors that are actively investing in Israel. And this creates a very interesting dynamic for the investors because they have more leverage when they're negotiating terms with the startups. This is also one of the reasons why valuation of startup companies in Israel tend to be much lower than other startup hubs in the world. Like if you look at New York or in Silicon Valley, and this is not because the returns are inferior. In fact, the returns are superior. I wanted to say I've actually, this is my 4th day here in Brazil, and I've had a real pleasure in meeting the people here and talking about how you look at investments and opportunities, and also learning about how you've been coping with difficulties in the economy, and how you're also thinking about opportunities abroad, like Israel. And I think iAngels is one of those opportunities where people in Brazil have really an opportunity to do what they do very well, which is ask tough questions to make sure these opportunities are real, and manage these opportunities in a smart and suspicious way. So in terms of our platform, we really based it on 3 main pillars. First of all, research. Second of all, partnership with proven leaders that have a track record and an exit history. And third of all, the idea of the alignment of interest. Now, in terms of research, I can tell you a little bit about my background. I come from a financial background. I started my career at UBS in private wealth management. I was advising high net worth individuals on how to invest their portfolios. Afterwards, I moved on to Avenue Capital, which is a top-tier hedge fund based in New York, where I was covering financial companies in distress and investing $2 billion at the time in companies like AIG and Lehman Brothers and Citigroup. Afterwards, I felt compelled to come back to Israel, which was always my home. I grew up in Israel, and I always knew that I want to go back and build a family there. And I was recruited by Goldman Sachs, by the investment banking division, where I spent 3 years, which in real human life is like 10 years, actually. And anybody who worked at Goldman can attest to it. And at Goldman, I was involved in many M&A transactions and IPOs, and also some principal investments that Goldman made into startup companies and into large VC funds in Israel. And this was kind of, this gave me a lot of experience in learning about the high-tech industry, which I really fell in love with. And then when my partner, Morasia, came to me with this idea of starting iAngels, it was very exciting for us. I mean, as you can see, everybody in our group basically comes from a very analytical research background. Morasia is a technology analyst. By background, she was recruited to the 8200 unit, which Fernanda mentioned before. And there's a saying in Israel where the successful startups need to have at least one member from the 8200 unit. So Mor is my second half, and she fills that. Position. Afterwards, she studied mathematics and computer science at the Technion, and she was involved in many strategic and technological positions in SAP, in IBM, and in Amdocs. So she too understands investors from abroad and brings a lot of global perspective into really what investors look for. And we started iAngels because we wanted to invest. We wanted to invest in high-tech in Israel. And research is part of our day-to-day. We research the startups that we invest in. We research the industry and the trends. We research all the investors in Israel, and we track them daily. And therefore, it's a very important part of our platform. Now, in terms of partnerships, our co-investors built some of the most profitable companies in Israel. A lot of them you might be familiar with. Matomi, Waze, Amobi, PrimeSense, and we find that there are several benefits to working with these partners in a co-investment model. So first of all, we get to benefit from their expertise. Each angel investor and each VCs, they have an area which they know the most, and they get all the deal flow in it. And people want them on board and are willing to raise capital at a lower valuation to get them involved because they have strategic value and because they have that online, that hands-on experience. The second benefit is that we like to leverage the combined knowledge of our network. So I'll give you an example. Basically, whenever we have an investment opportunity, one of the first things we do is we make phone calls to the entire angel community that's part of our network. And it's not only to the people that actually invested in the company. Sometimes the conversations are actually much more interesting with the investors that decided not to invest. And being able to do that and to have those connections are really important when we're making investment decisions. And lastly, and perhaps most importantly, we benefit from the access. I think the key to good decision making always is having options. And these angels, because they built these companies and they have a reputation for being good investors, they see all the deal flow in Israel. And it's because when a startup in Israel wants to start up, these are the first people he calls. And we know that because these were the first people that we called when we started iAngels. And in fact, a lot of the angel investors that were involved in these opportunities also invested in us. So, so they have even more of an incentive to share our vision and to see how iAngels really kind of grows and lives upon that vision of connecting the investor community abroad with Israel and building wealth together. Now, the last point that I said before about kind of the three main components of iAngels is the idea of alignment of interest. And alignment of interest is one of the most important things, in my opinion. If I were to invest in Brazil, I would definitely want to do it with a local professional, someone who's on the ground, who knows the market, and I'd want to be doing it under the terms that such investor is investing in. And this is basically what we're doing at iAngels. When you're investing through us, you're investing with people that are professional industry insiders that are putting in money out of their own pocket in these opportunities, and you're investing under the same exact terms that they're investing, so you know that when they're looking after their interests, by extension, they're also looking out after your interests, which is, I think, one of the main differentiators of our platform versus any other platform in the world. So iAngels, we launched the platform about 1.5 years ago. We've invested in over 20 companies, $6 million. We haven't had any exits yet. For some of you who might have some experience in angel investing, the duration of these investments are between 4 to 8, even 10 years. So don't invest the money that you plan on using for your future home. But we do see our companies developing and creating value. Many of our companies have already raised subsequent round at higher valuations. Many of them have established very strong partnerships with global leaders like WPP and eBay. And so we'd love to have you join our community. I wanted to review with you the current investment opportunities on iAngels, the opportunities which we're funding today. So the first opportunity is Hola. Hola is making internet better and faster. It's actually a growth stage company. This is the first time we're investing in a company that's already in round C. Hola has actually built already a platform, a VPN network using its technology that disrupted the VPN market, the virtual private network market. They have 50 million users today, and they're growing 100,000 users each day without spending a penny on marketing. And afterwards, after they kind of established this VPN network, they created around it a B2B business, which provides business intelligence. They did this 9 months ago, and today they're already making $700,000 in revenue and break even. So the technology of making internet and streaming internet faster has many, many uses. And right now, they raised a $10 million round from Magma and Horizons Ventures, which is Lee Ka-ching's fund, which invested in Waze and Facebook and Spotify. So they raised this $10 million round in order to disrupt the CDN market, the content delivery network market. Which is a very interesting market because we're in a period where internet traffic is growing at a rate of 60% a year. And the CDN market is expected to grow at a 27% CAGR over the next 5 years. And this is because internet traffic is growing exponentially. If you think, for example, of the World Cup, we found that according to research, the World Cup of 2014 experienced 10 times the traffic than in 2010. And the Olympics experienced it 7 times the traffic. And if you look at analyst reports, they believe that the traffic is going to be 1,000 times more than what it is today. And this is because we haven't even experienced the beginning of streaming and people pulling the plug on the cable networks. And basically today, what happens with the CDN providers of today, Akamai and Amazon, they need to spend a lot on infrastructure and servers in order to service their customers, specifically on the peak hours. But what happens is that they have a lot of equipment which is not utilized during the other 90% of the time, which is not peak. And in light of OLA's technology, they're able to keep their servers at 99% utilization. And therefore, they can provide this service at 10% of the cost of their biggest competitors. Now, this is a market that by nature, it's a concentrated market. It's almost monopolistic because of this capital intensity. So we're investing in this company, and I think one of the most interesting aspects of it is the fact that the founders have already created a successful company, Jungo, which they sold to Cisco for over $100 million, and Cisco is obviously a potential buyer of this kind of company as well. These are some of the materials that I didn't go through, but it can give you a sense of the kind of analysis that we provide our investors with, the investors on our platform. So the other opportunity I wanted to talk about, Caja, you might think that I planned it, that two of the companies that I'm presenting have a Spanish name, but it isn't the case. Caja is a sophisticated warehouse solution based on robotics that enables warehouse management, which can scale easily and is built just on bins that latch onto each other. So basically, all you need is a floor, and you can create a warehouse that can scale up and down based on your needs. And instead of employees, you use robots. Now, this is a very interesting space. Currently, the e-commerce market is $900 billion. The fulfillment market is $100 billion. And warehouses are finding it very difficult to live up to these growing markets and to consumer expectations. Consumer demands, in light of same-day service delivery and in light of performance sales, they need to bring their warehouses closer to the consumer. And as you know, the closer you are to the consumer, the more expensive the real estate is. So the need is apparent. The need for efficiency, for cost cutting, and for optimization in warehouse management is incredibly important. We're investing in a team that has 20 years of experience in robotics and in software. They have already 2 patents pending and a couple of closed pilots with global warehouses worldwide. So the last opportunity I wanted to talk about is Miss Bees, which is Uber for beauty. We've seen a lot of growth lately in the on-demand market. Just this year, there's been $9 billion of private investment into on-demand companies that are private, companies like Uber and Instacart and Airbnb. And in terms of the public markets, companies like HomeAway that are trading publicly are trading at 45 times earnings multiples. And it's because people are realizing that the traditional services industry is set for disruption, if it hasn't been disrupted yet already. And Miss Bees is planning to disrupt the nail and salon market, the $60 billion nail and salon market in Europe, and allow beauty providers to manage their own business and empower women that are busy and need to and consume beauty services instantly with a click of a button. This founder, Maya Gura, basically, every company she's founded, she sold. Her first company, The Gift Project, she sold to eBay. Her second company, PickApp, she sold to Getty Images. So she's a serial entrepreneur, incredibly successful. And I think that, as you can see, we tend to invest in entrepreneurs that already have a proven track record, together with investors that have a proven track record, because we know that this obviously increases the chances of success. So just to kind of sum up, Israel has clearly established itself as a startup nation, and our job today is to establish ourselves as a partnership nation. And this is part of what we're here for. This is the reason we came to Brazil, to plant the seed and really create a partnership that is a win-win, that's honest and transparent, and really provides you with all the analysis that you expect to see when you're making investments in order to further strengthen the connection to Israel and build wealth together. Thank you.
So now we're going to have a quick Q&A session because we are totally out of time. So I would like to call Benny Rubinstein. Mr. Rubinstein is President and CEO of Acelera Partners. He leads the strategy and execution of Acelera Partners to foster Brazilian startup ecosystem development. And I'll also like to call Guilherme Pacheco. Mr. Pacheco is founding partner at Mosaico Internet Ventures, a Brazilian multi-stage investment firm providing capital and strategic support for internet companies from early to late stage. Previously, in 1999, he was co-founder of Bondifaro, a price comparison website that helped millions of Brazilian consumers make better shopping decisions. So I would like to ask you that please do a quick question. Maybe we're going to have time just for one quick question for each of the companies that are present here today. So yeah, so which one would you like to address? Maybe you can choose one and you can choose the other.
I can address Miss Biz, the last one.
So can you come?
As you said, as you put Miss Biz as a Uber for beauty. The question is, although it can benefit from a centralized IT platform, it also needs people on the ground to make the structure happen, to source professionals, to manage customer satisfaction, etc. So it requires a lot of capital. What is the plan to raise capital, or is there a different approach for that through franchise, local partners, etc.?
So first of all, I agree 100%. Right now, they're raising their seed round, so it's at the very early stages, and the seed round is meant to help them launch both in Israel and in London. And what they're doing in Israel is they first of all, they've established already a partnership in Israel with one of the top nail and salon providers in Israel. And the CEO is actually interviewing a couple of women. She's interviewing all the women that are actually going to provide the services. And so right now, their go-to-market plan is to actually have several service providers on call and create a closed beta of about 100 women. And they're paying the women that are providing the services a small salary in order for them to be on call, so that once they launch the beta, they'll be able to service this group of 100 women. And that way they can control their launch in a way that once they receive more traction, they can grow further. Now, because it's a business where you make money on day one, then they're going to also obviously use that cash to grow more. And in terms of London, the London launch, which is expected in Q4, they're interviewing right now a general manager for London, which is also going to do kind of the work of going and recruiting. So I think like in any business, like in any startup business, and maybe more so in this kind of business, in the beginning you do things that aren't scalable. You have to go and recruit yourself and do things that you plan on not doing in the future. If you think even on Airbnb, people like telling kind of the story about how the CEO went apartment by apartment and actually took pictures of the apartments in the beginning. So the idea is to reach traction in these two geographies and then raise a much larger round in order to scale in other geographies.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'd like to ask you to stay to save you one trip, if it's possible. Well, thanks for having us. My question is quite straightforward. I was intrigued with Ola. Last night I was actually checking it as a consumer. I recently moved back to Brazil. And one of my biggest disappointment arriving here was nothing to do with politics or anything like that. It was that my Pandora stopped working. And I have no investment on Pandora. I can speak about it as a consumer. And I got this screen saying, your IP address is in Brazil. Forget about it. We'll let you know when you have the service in Brazil. So yesterday, the first thing I did is in 30 seconds, I clicked on Ola, and I was listening to my favorite songs again. So I was really, really happy. So my question is, looking at your revenue projections, I know you all come from very quantitative analysis background. I see a jump from 1 to 9 to 50 to 200 million in the revenue forecast, and I've worked in management consult. I know how those numbers go, but I just wanted to understand the logic in terms of how the revenue really scales and actually how it's generated in that business.
Okay, good question. I asked it too. So, so first of all, what you saw is kind of the business plan. So it is an optimistic business plan, and we didn't invest based on that, only that scenario. We ran many scenarios. I can tell you that in terms of, they have two main businesses that are producing cash. The first one is the Illuminati business, the B2B business, which is currently making $700,000 a month. They confidently believe that they're going to be able to make $1 million, and we actually believe them because they started 9 months ago at 0, and they're already at 700,000. So we believe it's reasonable they get to $1 million by the end of the year, and by next year they get to around $2 million. This business has been receiving great traction, and they have 15 salespeople doing it and being paid primarily on performance. So they have about a 90% gross margin just on the Illuminati, and that's how you get to kind of 25 million next year and $50 million next year. Now, in terms of the CDN business, you have different kind of clients. You have the smaller clients, which if you close them with a pilot, if you close them and you're successful, they'll pay you about $20,000 a year, and they've already have like five pilots of those between like kind of the smaller companies and the larger companies that are going to be paying about $20,000 to $50,000 a year. Now, today they're closing 20 people on the Illuminati business, and their projections are assuming that they're going to close between 1 and 2 customers a week. So they understand that the cycles are going to be longer in the CDN, but at the end of the day, if they're not going to capture at least 15% of the market, it won't be much of a disruption. So you have to at least believe that they're going to get there. Now, in terms of our scenario analysis, we kind of, across the board put kind of a 50% to even 60 to 70% discount on their projections of the CDN business. But if you look at how these companies are valued, even if they manage to do 90 million or 100 million in the CDN business, it's still going to be a very, very attractive business and a very, very attractive target for players in this industry. By the way, the companies right now are trading at between 25 times to 30 times PE. Akamai, Level 3, Limelight.
Very good, thanks. I'm going to look at it more closely now.
So, do you have questions for Pango?
Yeah. Do you want to move along the end because you need to?
No, Pablo is not.
Do not. Okay.
Because of the time.
Okay. Okay. So I actually have a question for Pango. There was a long list of questions I had for Mobileye. They were